Let's see it.
2024 is the final battle. They're going after Trump, and if they can get Trump, it means they can get you, they can get me, they can get all of us. He is standing in the way, and that can sound like a campaign slogan, but it's very true. Now we're approaching the most important battle of our lives. Now, for the very first time in American history, when we get back power, I don't really want to have peace with these people who did this to us and are continuing to do this to us. We have to turn the tables on them, give them a dose of their own medicine, and then we can even the playing field, and then we can discuss unity.
It helps if I unmute my microphone. That might help. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for being here. And it's going to be, when we usually do these shows, we kind of fly by the seat of our pants and talk about current events and whatever we want to bring to the round table. So with that being said, how are you doing, Mr. Patriot Underground?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me. And yeah, it's been, I think what, a couple of months since we got together. We try to do this once a month. And as I always say, it's a refreshing conversation for me because as you guys know, working with a whole bunch of different people, your approach for different shows and different guests tends to vary, and I always like the fact that I can just show up for a conversation with you guys and we can spitball together and we can bounce ideas off of each other. And we never know where it's actually going to end up, where we're going to go. And that's really kind of the beauty of it all. You know, it's sort of emblematic or symbolic, if you might say, of the Great Awakening in general. Like, we wake up every day, we're not really exactly sure what direction we're going to be headed, but we're all on the journey together. So I think when we have these conversations, it's almost like a microcosm of that concept. I really enjoy getting together with you guys, and I think it should be a great show. It always is. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I always look forward to these. I really do. You know, it was interesting in the introduction. A huge osprey flew down and caught a fish and flew past the house, and all the birds right now are kind of reacting to it. If you can hear,
I could hear something playing in the background there. I wasn't sure if it was the dogs, you know, or what was going on there. But yeah,
no, it's birds. There's quite a variety of birds, but the ospreys are something else.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah,
Well, I think it's good to jump in with Scott. Scott has some unfolding recent developments that he's wanting to share, and let's just start right there. I think we should.
Oh, what do you mean with the Charlie Kirk thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. You know, I haven't seen the entire video, and I want to give credit. It's Baron. Can't think of his name. I'll have to dig it up. We'll put it in the notes. But it's really a compelling argument that it may have been the microphone that was used, you know, in the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and it would explain a lot of the anomalies, like the ring flying off of the finger, you know, the weird puffiness of the shirt, the earpiece blew out, you know, and the lack of blood, because if you're electrocuted, I guess that would coagulate the blood to a certain degree, and there'd be far less of it. But we certainly know it wasn't a 30-06. But you know, there's so many competing theories. I was fascinated by the idea that someone had advanced that it was a really good video, and again, I'd love to give credit, but I've seen a few of them. The what they were calling the camera behind Charlie Kirk, you know, on that day, was in fact not a camera but a holographic projector, and the guy zoomed in on it, and then showed what the projector looks like, the exact model, the specs, everything, and it was a dead ringer. So you know, was this a hologram? You know, I've also heard a lot of reports of a trap door under the stage. There was sort of this Sandy Hook style bulldozing of the area, and you know, immediately after, no crime scene has ever been treated in the way that one was. You know, there's a lot of questions, but this microphone theory is really rather compelling. And I think really that the thing that is stirring the most controversy, probably, pardon the airplane, is Erica Kirk. You know, very strange performance. You know, and then of course the reaction to Candace Owens, and Candace Owens having worked at Turning Point and had been friends with Charlie and so on. The recent blowout that Tim Pool had over Candace Owens was way over the top. I mean, it almost just looked like Israel send me money. You know, it was incredible and disturbing. But you know, and is this a distraction? And if so, what are we being distracted from? Oh, and one of the most compelling things is Kash Patel's comment. You know, where he said, "I'll see you in Valhalla, Charlie." And what have we heard about Valhalla?
Right.
Valhalla is, I mean, they've actually mapped this out, but that's a place where allegedly a lot of people that are presumed dead are very much alive and well. Now, you know, we're not dealing with a lot of evidence here. And so, you know, a lot of these maybe are wild claims or theories, but I think they're all quite interesting. I think the one thing we can agree on is the official story is absolute shit.
Yeah, but don't question it though, because if you do, you're a bad person.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, actually, I was talking about this with Dave the other night, the coordinated messaging campaign, where, you know, first Erica Kirk goes on Fox News with Harris Faulkner, and she, you know, she kind of says, well, she's asked about the conspiracy theories, and she's basically saying, well, you can say whatever you want about me, but I draw the line when it comes to my family. And then she proceeded to say that she basically considers Turning Point USA her family. So that's completely off limits. You're not allowed to talk about that. But she used an interesting phrase. She did say, you go down the rabbit hole if you want to, but I draw the line where I draw the line. So I think that might have been a little wink and a nod to all of us in terms of this psyop. And then, of course, the following day, she went on Glenn Beck. She went on all these different shows. And then the rest of the MAGA normie media picked up upon this and basically started this whole coordinated messaging campaign that it's time for people to stop with the conspiracy theories about Charlie Kirk's death. Like, we're all just supposed to believe the official story. And it's interesting because I saw a meme that was pretty funny. I don't know if I actually, let me see if I can pull it up, because I mean, it pretty much, it describes the absurdity of it all. I don't think I actually have it here, but in essence, it was basically like conservatives in 2020 question everything, like screaming at the top of their lungs, and then conservatives in 2025. Why would you question the official government narrative? Like, that's somehow that became a bad thing for a story that is absolutely, like you said, Scott, it's absolutely absurd on its face.
Well, it's reminiscent of Pam Bondi's I have the Epstein file on my desk, and then, oh, it doesn't exist. It's a hoax. It's like,
right. Yeah.
What are they communicating? I mean,
I'll be honest with you. I think that this is, I mean, to say this is a psyop is rather obvious. But to me, all of these contradictory messages, at a certain point, you have to say to yourself, I don't think that they're trying to get us to make sense of any of this stuff. I think it's quite the opposite. I think they're trying to confuse everybody. I think that they're trying to piss people off. They're trying, like Dave says all the time, controversy breeds conversation. You can say that in a multitude of different ways, but in essence, the more that they induce cognitive dissonance, the more the issue stays red hot, the more people start paying attention to it. And then the more people start actually seeking out information, seeking out the truth. And even though you can't necessarily pinpoint it with 100% accuracy, you can certainly identify the bullshit that they're feeding us. And I think that really is the whole point. But as far as I hadn't heard anything about this whole electrocution by the microphone theory until you just brought it up to me. The one thing I can say is that it would certainly, I mean, I personally don't believe Charlie's dead. I think this is all part of a psyop. I've been very clear about that. But putting that aside for the moment, just in terms of the optics that we're looking at, it would explain the fact that supposedly he was shot with a 30-06 that somehow magically didn't blow his head off. I mean, it was even I remember there was a doctor who came out and basically said that he had almost like Superman skeletal frame or something to be able to stop that bullet. And then there was the picture of Tyler Robinson, and then there was like the Superman ad in the background. So I think this is all forepog stuff, but it certainly would explain why when the bullet supposedly struck him, it's almost like he went into like rigor mortis or something. It almost looked as if his whole body just kind of tensed up. And remember at the time, everyone was talking about the fact that he held on to the microphone.
Yeah.
Like he gets shot in the neck with a 30-06 and his body just kind of like goes limp. And then, but somehow he manages to hang on to the microphone. I mean, there's so many things to talk about there, but the lack of any blood whatsoever spraying out in the background. I mean, you don't have to be a ballistics expert. You don't even really have to be into firearms. You just have to have a basic, some degree of common sense, to know that there's no possible way that official story holds any water.
Well, and I think you just said something. If there's an electrocution, wouldn't that make sense that if he's holding onto the microphone, that the microphone is kind of stuck to his
head? That's kind of where I was going with that.
Right.
Yeah. It makes it plausible, for sure. The guy goes into great depth in the video, and I recommend everybody check it out if you're interested. But we had 12 Israeli phone signals in the audience. We had the private jet that left, which was, the first reporting of it was an Israeli jet. Now we're talking about 2 Egyptian jets. But there are connections between Egypt and Israel that kind of explain that. And then, of course, they recently, the Israeli government recently was quite proud of blowing up a bunch of Palestinians with pagers. So, it's sort of in that envelope of, and I'm not advancing any theories because I don't have the answers. I just have lots of questions.
Yeah,
But
right. And I
yeah,
think that's really the whole point, right? It's like
yeah.
we're not supposed to get to the answers, but we're supposed to be talking about all of the questions. And where they're going to go with this, that's anybody's guess. You could speculate all day long. But I think that the one thing that anyone, pretty much everybody, I think at this point can agree upon is that the official story is nonsense. And then when you see uh, this lockstep, it was almost like we're used to the mainstream media, Mockingbird media, putting out literally the same exact talking points. And now it's kind of trickled down into the alternative media as well. For the people that I like to say are, they have a totally different audience. Like the people who listen to, um, I would suggest, the people who listen to Benny Johnson, the people who listen to certainly Glenn Beck, certainly people like that, even Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens. I believe they're all part of the operation, but their target audience, the people that generally like their meat and potato audience, are not Q people.
Well, what's going
We
on with
have
Cash Patel? I mean, there's the honeypot situation with the Mossad girl, the rather attractive gal he seems enamored with, and the fact that remember Cash prior to this appointment, he was so gregarious and charming and full of personality, and now when you see him, he's just got that look,
he
like
looks like he's strung out on cocaine pretty
it's
much
so.
every time you see him. I mean,
And where's
really.
Bongino? Has anybody seen Dan in a while?
I mean, he pops onto social media, and
He's doing
Yeah,
his shows. I just saw something
is
pop
he?
up from. Yeah, I
Okay.
think he's still doing his
is he
shows.
actually doing shows still? I didn't know that.
Something said unless what I admit that maybe it's someone that is saying it's a Dan Bongino page and it's not. I did see it pop up, so there is that likelihood. If anyone could clarify that in the audience, that would be
I
great.
thought that when he took the
Right.
deputy director position that because he made a big announcement and he
Right.
he shed some tears when he had to walk away from his show and all this type of stuff. So I don't,
Right.
at least to my knowledge, I mean, if he's, I don't think that that's the case though. And I can't imagine that the sitting deputy director of the FBI is actually running a podcast.
Yeah. And I don't know if it was like an update, but just like there's a SGanon channel that's not his and has a decent amount of followers and but it's not him. So there could be someone that has set up a Bongino page that's not in fact him. So
Okay.
I do want to. I want to first of all thank the audience for all the comments. I try and look at some of them. I had a conversation with Mark Abrams from News Trees, and he's like, when I do a show and I'm live with my eyes, I can't read the comments. So it's interesting because maybe as I talk about how I sometimes don't like to multitask, but I end up doing it on the show anyway because we like to bring the comments in, and sometimes those comments shift the conversation entirely. So please keep them coming. Thank you for the kind words about the show that Scott and I did last night with Mark Messina. Yeah, and there was one comment. I want to bring this up to Scott. So I don't know if I can see this on here, but basically it said that they appreciate the what we did last night, and there should be more guys like us. So I'll try and find that comment if I can. But thank you. That means a lot because I did get a bit emotional, a little bit passionate. Mark found out that I really am Italian. So, yeah. So
somebody actually, speaking of the comments, somebody just mentioned that that guy Vince, that Bongino turned his show over to Vince.
Okay.
Now runs the shows. And it's funny because I was actually, I never really followed Bongino's podcast religiously. I mean, I always watched the clips that got circulated, but I never knew who this guy Vince was. And then all of a sudden he's like, it seemed like he just sort of came out of nowhere and he's in the on the Rumble leaderboard in the top 5, like every show that he does. So that makes sense. Okay. I don't know much about the guy, but yeah, to clarify that, it looks like that's what happened. He turned his podcast over to this other guy to take the reins. So
That helps to clarify that.
Mhm.
Is there, someone mentioned you did a great show the other day with Dave. I think, I don't know if it was just Dave or Dave and Mark from News Treason, but
it was just Dave. It was just Dave and I.
was there anything that you just kind of are on the edge of your seat to share with the viewers at this point? I mean,
Well, I mean, there's not one specific thing I can say, but I guess that what Dave and I were talking about in general is just kind of where we're at now in terms of everything ramping up at the end of 2025. I mean, there's just so many things going on right now. And I could tell you that, well, let's put it this way. Let's just kind of run down the list here. I mean, you've got the Tina Peters situation. You've got that looking like it's very much timed in conjunction with what they're getting ready to do, which is expose the election theft of 2020. As a matter of fact, Trump, I'm sure you guys saw just a couple of days ago, he literally said in the next couple of months, you're going to get the truth, or the truth is going to come out about the 2020 election. And very few people had even really been talking about Tina Peters. I know that Juan Savin has talked about it a lot recently, and I think he's kind of reintroduced it into the narrative space. And then we had Trump pardoning her just a couple of days ago, but it sets up a very interesting scenario where he's pardoning her, but as everybody knows, she's sitting in Colorado state prison. So that doesn't mean that it's just a get out of jail free card. And they actually had the attorney general from Colorado. I think the guy's name is like Phil Wiseman or something like that. But he said that, oh no, we're not going to release her. And this is the president basically overstepping his authority and all of these types of things. So I think that's actually fascinating given everything else that's going on surrounding election 2020. Because if what Trump is telling us is going to actually play out over the next couple of months, we already know they have everything. It's just a question of how they're going to actually present it to the public. So over the next couple of months, we're going to start to get the truth about the election theft. We've already been talking now about some new revelations surrounding January 6th. But in terms of the 2020 election, Tina Peters could very well be a federal witness. And so that could set up a showdown between the federal government and the state government in Colorado as to whether or not they're going to comply and actually let her out of prison if indeed she becomes a witness in a federal case about the 2020 election. So there's that going on. I mean, if you've got the Colorado officials blocking her release, that could very easily trigger, or at least contribute to triggering the Insurrection Act, because we've seen that theme playing out this entire year. It's just been one example of another of blue state governors, blue state mayors, particularly highlighted in California and in Chicago, basically saying that they're not going to comply with ICE. They're putting up all of these roadblocks, engaging in outright insurrection. We have the Seditious Six video that came out urging the military not to follow orders. You've got the judicial tyranny that's playing out. So all of these different contributing factors are building the case for the Insurrection Act. And if Tina Peters, like I said, becomes a federal witness in this whole situation, and they are refusing to release her, that could contribute very significantly to that whole situation. You've also got as we brace for 2026, Tom Homan has been saying now for a while that early in 2026, the deportation initiative is going to ramp up massively. We've also got some very high profile arrests, I do believe, looming in the background. So all of these different storm clouds are kind of gathering, at least in my mind, that are going to contribute to the Insurrection Act being overtly declared. We've also got the auto pen on the front burner once again, which, as you know, Trump basically nullified all of Joe Biden's pardons. So that opens up the door to January 6th prosecutions, Liz Cheney, Adam Schiff. It also opens up Fauci to prosecution as well. And the timing, once again, with that, it's not a coincidence. What are we're seeing all over social media, something that we've known for a while now, but it's basically starting to come out to the masses. With Stanford University released a study saying, oh yeah, the COVID vaccine actually can kill people, and it can cause myocarditis, and particularly in young men. And we've got the FDA. I mean, this was absolutely massive. The FDA put a black box warning on the COVID vax. Okay.
Right.
So this is happening right around the same time that the pardon's been nullified. Fauci is exposed again. You got the auto pen that could have a whole wide range of implications, and including undoing one of the picks of Joe Biden on for the Supreme Court. So there's that. You've got General Flynn signaling more terrorist attacks. He just put out a video. Dave and I spoke about it the other night, going all the way back to 2015, I believe it was, talking about, in essence, that the government knew that this was, that has known all along about the threats of Islamic terrorism. And I believe that with the attack that we saw, the false flag in DC, the shooting of the National Guard, the two National Guardsmen, that could very well be signaling more of these, along with Flynn's messaging, more of these terrorist attack, these false flags coming. Only this time, I do believe it's going to be tied directly to the FBI, the feds, the three-letter agencies. Of course,
Right.
it dovetails very nicely with January 6th. So, I mean, there's just so much going on. We had Trump just yesterday, I think it was, in the Oval Office with the 1980 Miracle hockey team, where they're all wearing the white hats. So
I didn't see that. Wow.
Oh yeah, it's been all over social media. Let me see.
That is cool.
I'm sure folks have seen it by now, but
didn't he sign an executive order yesterday saying
Yeah, I'm going to show this.
No more fake pandemics?
Yeah. So I want to show two clips.
Yeah.
One is Dr. David Martin. This is just about a minute, about him talking about the biolabs and the universities, and then I'll play that clip that Scott's talking about, because this is really important for people to see. If they're not familiar with Dr. David Martin, it's incredible mind. So here.
Oh yeah, he's brilliant.
Here we go. I'll play this first.
Silence. But ironically, you've seen silence on the other side. You've never seen Tucker or Rogan or any of these guys talk about the bioweapons programs happening in the United States under university support, and nobody puts two and two together. When you see an elected official going into Congress, they get $200,000-$300,000 a year salary. They go into Congress, and 10 years later, they have $150 million.
Yeah.
Or in the case of a couple more recent, $240 million. Now, Chris, I don't know about you, but it feels like there must be some money laundering going on somewhere, because, oh, that's right, we don't want to talk about this. We don't want the public to know that our state universities in America are currently money laundering exercises as slush funds to move money from the federal government to elected officials through the cunning use of lab research that should never be done under any civilized nation on earth. And we don't have any problem with that happening. And not a single person in the media is willing to talk about it.
So there's that. And then I want to play this clip that Scott was referring to. Pardon my scrolling here, but I know it's right down here. This is from, I believe, yesterday. And here it is. All right, go with this.
The first relates to gain of function research. Gain of function research is a type of biomedical research where pathogens are adulterated, viruses are adulterated to make them more potent or to change the way that they function. Many people believe that gain-of-function research was one of the key causes of the COVID pandemic that struck us in the last decade. What this executive order does, first of all, it provides powerful new tools to enforce the ban on federal funding for gain-of-function research abroad. It also strengthens other oversight mechanisms related to that issue and creates an overarching strategy to ensure that biomedical research in general is being conducted safely and in a way that ultimately protects human health more.
It's a big deal. It could have been that we wouldn't have had the problem we had.
A lot of people say that, sir.
If this done earlier. Thank you.
Wow. Let's see. Oh, I thought I stopped sharing there. We need to make us bigger now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can just click on it and it should minimize it.
It's funny because how did they get around the ban on gain-of-function research before? I mean, I thought it was all highly illegal prior to. It's interesting. We have to keep doing things.
Yeah, well, I don't remember the exact details, but Fauci basically ran a workaround. That's how the whole situation ended up in Wuhan and through the University of North Carolina. It was shut down, but then it was basically outsourced. So they just found a loophole. But yeah, I mean, you know, this is all stuff that we've known now for years, and it's all coming out now, though, and it's very, very exciting to see how all of these. The way that I described it the other night with Dave is like, you know, using the metaphor of a puzzle. You know, it's like all of the puzzle pieces in the beginning are just kind of scattered all over the table. You don't really quite know what the hell to make of it. But gradually, as we're getting deeper into 2025, closer to what I think is going to be a pretty monumental year, they're putting all the puzzle pieces, you know, they're sliding them into place more and more so that people get a clearer picture of the things that we've known for quite some time now. So it's pretty exciting to watch.
I do want to bring this up. So this is what you're talking about.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So this was interesting because, I mean, obviously they've got all the white hats on here, right?
Wow.
And so that in and of itself is a calm. But this was the 1980 Olympic hockey team. And I don't know if you guys have seen the film with Kurt Russell, Miracle. It was basically the way that it was characterized. So you've got the Miracle team in the Oval Office, all wearing white hats. And then actually this one right up above here, it was kind of funny too. This was put out by MQB on X. He said, "Holy crap, giddy up Cowboys" on Jesse Waters, Jasmine Crockett in a black cowboy hat 2 days ago. So you can see that, you know, there she is like wearing the black cowboy hat a couple of days ago. And there's the sheriff logo there in the background. And Jesse Waters is saying, "Buckle up, MAGA." And then 2 days later, what do we see?
Yeah. Boy, that's a 20-gallon hat there. Holy cow.
It is. Wow.
You notice Kash Patel didn't have a hat?
Well, yeah. And actually Trump said something to him because he was standing there at the time, right amongst the hockey team. And I think it's kind of funny because what have we been saying now for such a long time about well, not so much us, but what have people been saying about Kash Patel? Like, what's going on with this guy? He seems like he's not the same dude that we were all anticipating he was going to be. And there's been all of this suspicion surrounding him in terms. I mean, you mentioned his girlfriend Alexis. What's her name? Alexis Wilkins, I think. And all the conversation about her being, associated with Israel and so on and so forth. But anyway, so Kash is standing there and Trump looks at him and he goes, "Oh, I didn't realize you were part of the team, Kash."
Well, in all fairness, he'd look pretty ridiculous wearing one of those hats, I think. But
yeah. And I think basically what Trump is trying to say between the lines there is, he may not be visibly wearing that hat. In other words, in terms of public perception right now, he may not appear like he's on the team, but he's very much in the middle of all of these white hats playing a very important role. So that's the way that I interpreted that anyway. So, but yeah, it's just really exciting to see all the pieces coming together. And I mean, it just goes on and on and on. The Erica Kirk stuff, the COVID vaccine study that I just mentioned a moment ago. Trump they're saying that he's about to reschedule cannabis on a federal level as well. And this, of course, is on the heels. And I'm sure you guys remember on Truth Social about, I don't know if it was like a month ago or something like that. He shared, first he shared the video about med beds on his Truth Social, and that got everybody's attention. And then he took it down. I think it was up for like 10 hours or something like that, but it was certainly long enough. I mean, the Anons are going to pick up on it. If something is on Truth Social for 30 seconds, we're going to pick up on it.
Right.
But they left it up there long enough so that everybody would be talking about it. And then he followed it up with a video about cannabis, essentially, about CBD and cannabis, and how it more or less has, I'm pretty sure everybody out there knows, a whole myriad of different health benefits and can be used to treat a multitude of different diseases. And now we have him talking about basically just rescheduling cannabis altogether. So that is interesting.
Yeah.
My gosh. I mean, I could just go on and on and on, guys. There's so much happening. Israel.
For sure. I wanted to ask you, did you see this clip of Mickey from Mickey Talks that is making its way around of him? I'll just play it. It's a great clip. It's about
Is this the guy who Rambo has on his show?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's pretty awesome.
I know who he is. Yeah, I don't really know too much about him though.
Okay, this is a beautiful clip. He's a bit emotional in it, but I think it speaks to what's going on right now with people awakening. So I'm going to play this. And he changed his name. Now his show is now called Above the Rabbit Hole. And here this is a prelude to it. Here we go.
Cool.
Dude, I keep it as real as any motherfucker.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm realizing. This show saved my life. This show, I'm saying it for real. It saved my life emotionally and spiritually. It saved my life, Matt. And when I had nothing, I had this show. And I'm God damn it, I sound so fake right now.
No, man, I don't think you do at all, because I feel the same way you do, in that this show gave both of us a little bit of hope to do something we love to do.
I just am coming to the realization that it's time to go to the next level.
Yeah.
And these shows, dude, and these people. And look, I got to say something. You're going to hear words like Q, right? Anon, all these things that go on in the world. I'm in none of it. I'm not in any of it. I'm not down the rabbit holes at all. What I am, though, is at least to a point where I go, okay, you know what? In all fairness, I don't know if I agree with anything, but I'm starting to at least respect the intellect of these people. Very much so. And I'm starting to respect the fact that we at least need to listen. At the end of it, we can say, hey, guess what? I see what you're saying. I'm not all in, but I do realize that's something we should probably keep an eye on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
Okay. What are your thoughts? Because I'm just going to say this to Ben right now, is that he's one of those guys that Mickey's talking about. You know, there's an intellect, and you're just a guy that, you know, started the show. You didn't show your face, and people really love and respect the way that you bring information. And it's an honor to do these shows with you. But I mean, what did you think of that clip, man?
It didn't come off as fake to me at all. As a matter of fact, when he said that, I thought, wow, now I'm actually getting a much different vibe from this. It seems like he's very genuine. I don't know what exactly it was, because it wasn't fully in context that kind of triggered him to get emotional, and whether or not he was specifically talking about just having his audience and how his audience has been so important to him. And I can certainly identify with that as well. But then later in the clip, when he talked about Q and all the Anons out there, it's pretty obvious that he's starting to get red pilled. And I guess, you know, talking to somebody like Joe Rambo and going on those shows on a regular basis, that'll do that. That'll have that effect on you. You know, that's the thing I've said right from the beginning. If you have the courage to look and not just brush it off, because that's what most people do. That's what I did when I first started getting red pilled. It was like 2012 ish, somewhere around there. And I've said many times, your first reaction when you start learning the truth is that you don't want it to be true. You basically go through the denial process where you listen to this stuff, and it's much easier to just brush it off and say that's nonsense. These people are out of their freaking minds. But then the more you're exposed to it, the more you have to admit to yourself, holy crap, like there might actually be something there. And it has an incredible impact on a person emotionally. And that's what I saw. And it's a great reminder that people out there, because you guys have been awake. We've been doing shows for years now. Our audience has been, I would say probably 95% of our audiences have been awake for years now. But very often we can lose sight of the fact that everything that we're going through right now, and it's been said a million different times in a million different ways, we're not the target audience. We're not the normies. All of these different psyops are not directed at us. That's why the white hats give us the comms, just as a reminder, like, this is a scripted movie, guys. We're in control, but we're not the target audience. As Derek Johnson, he very, very cleverly and accurately coined that phrase. But as time has gone on and there's been this gradual increase of frustration on behalf of so many people inside of our movement, it's very important to subject ourselves to clips like that, to see people going through that genuine organic awakening process and it triggering them at a deep emotional level. And that's what I saw in that clip. And I think it's beautiful to watch. And it's a reminder for all of us that this plan, this whole operation is working. And I talked about this not on the last show I did with Dave, but it was the one before. I don't know if you guys caught that one, but I just happened to come across a survey, a poll that was run back in 2024. So it was in November of 2024. And what they did was they asked 3 questions to their polling sample that were central to the tenets of the beliefs of the Q operation. And I'd have to really dig through my X to find it, but maybe as you guys talk, I can do that just to show everybody. But long story short, I was shocked to see, because I think I came across it. I was on X and I just happened to grok, how many people are in alignment with the Q operation. And this popped up. So I went and I read this survey, and they found that 20% of people, the people that they polled, were in full agreement with these statements. And they were not milquetoast type of statements. It was like, gosh, I wish I could remember what they were. I'm going to have to go and dig this up now. But for now, it was that there's an elite cabal of Satan pedophile worshipers. I mean, they literally said, they made that statement. And that was one of the 3. I think another one was the country has gotten so far off track that we're headed toward basically a hostile takeover of the U.S. government. And then there was another statement that escapes me. But the point is that 20% of people a year ago were completely aligned with what we've been talking about now for years. And I added to that commentary that it turns out that 90% of people are demanding the release of the Epstein files. And of course, all of that drama has been playing out. I mean, that's pretty much been like the dominant story. There's been a million different things that have happened in 2025, but Epstein, I would say, going right back to, Binder Gate, outside of the White House, and all of the flip-flopping, all the contradictory messages that we've been talking about now for such a long time. Throughout this entire process, that has garnered the attention and the support of 90% of the country. When you think about that, what is 90? Can you name any other issue that the country is in agreement on at 90%? You can't even get, I joke about it, but you can't even get 90% of the country to agree on the sky being blue. That's how divided we are. And yet you've got 90%. So if you take those two figures, right, you had 20% a year ago. And by the way, there was like 45-ish% of the people who weren't fully on board, but they were at least open to these ideas. They were at least in partial agreement with these statements. So logically, that would seem to indicate that right now we're probably at like 35 to 40% of people who are fully on board with the Q operation.
Can you read it? Wait, 90%. What was it that the agreement was on?
On releasing the Epstein files.
Got it.
Epstein, okay. Yeah. And, Mel K has been making a very solid argument for years now about the Epstein boomerang being like the key part of this whole debacle. It really is. It really is.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to Jeffrey Epstein's testimony. I think that's going to be interesting.
Oh my God.
Well, yeah, and that's the other thing. How did I forget that when I went through my laundry list of things that are going on right now? We're 6 days away from the deadline for the Epstein Files Transparency Act. So it's going to be pretty fascinating to see what happens with that. I'm anticipating that we're going to get pretty much more of the same, that we're going to get more redactions. We're going to see just a new version of the quote unquote nothing burger. But I don't say that in a blackpilling type of sense. I think that that's exactly the point, because if you've got 90% of people after all of the shenanigans that have gone on in 2025 with the Epstein files, you got people saying, no, we want to see them. We want full disclosure. We want full transparency. We want to see people held accountable. We don't want to see redactions. And then they do it again. What's that going to do? That's just going to get more people. And even it's going to be pretty much universal at that point. And it's going to go beyond just people being interested to see and saying, yes, I agree, this information should come out, to people actually getting pissed off. Like, metaphorically speaking, the next step is people taking out their pitchforks and saying, we literally demanding this information to come out. And that really has been the premise of the way that I've interpreted all of these different psyops. That's the whole purpose of it. The purpose is kind of like we were talking about with the whole Charlie Kirk thing. In the context of that, we were basically saying that it's not so much that we should be looking at all this information and getting a clearer picture of what's going on. It's just the opposite. They're trying to induce so much cognitive dissonance in the public, and so much anger and so much frustration, that even amidst all of the optics of division, where it seems as if there's all this infighting going on, and it seems like we're more divided than ever, if you scratch beneath the surface, you see that people are aligning on the most important core principles behind this entire operation. Q made it very clear that Americans will be united again. This is all about unity. And it's being done under the guise, the camouflage, if you will, of optics, in order to continue to have that tension build up, so that when eventually all this stuff comes out, and I believe it's going to be in the not too distant future, sometime in 2026, that everybody is going to be on the same page, and everyone's going to understand that there is a level of corruption. It's not even a word that does it justice, but there's this entire elite cabal that does in fact exist, and they are the common enemy of the people. I think that that's what they're gradually building toward, but they're using the illusion of all of these optics to get us there. And that's what can get so confusing for folks. But I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling here, so I'll turn it back to you guys. But that's the way I see it. I think that the Epstein files is going to be a really, really important event that indicates very likely how they're going to proceed in the beginning of next year. And like I said, I'm anticipating that it's going to be. I'd love to be wrong. I mean, it's all also possible that we could wake up on the 19th and they could just literally open up the floodgates. Eventually, we know that's going to happen. I don't anticipate it this time, but I do think that we're getting much, much closer to it. So I'll leave it at that.
I do have a thought. I've discussed this on the show. I think one other show briefly, but we talk about this being maybe a 60-year plan, maybe longer. The whole Q phenomenon. And I'm looking back at all the disclosure that we've seen in TV and movies and so on. And I'm a big fan of a show called The Blacklist with James Spader. Are you familiar with that one?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I am.
Yeah. So what I didn't know, and Matt Geiger pointed this out, James Spader was JFK Jr.'s roommate, and they were best friends.
Really?
And the show is all about how the world is really run by a criminal cabal, and our government structure is just theater, and it really is at its highest levels run by a criminal cabal.
Right.
And in rewatching it, and I've probably seen it 3 times. I love the show, but I keep picking up more and more statements that are really overtly, describing exactly this, what we're experiencing now. And, that show aired quite some time ago. So Person of Interest was another one with Jim Caviezel that, made a lot of statements that I think were pure disclosure. But, I just thought it was really interesting that Junior's good friend and roommate, was, I think he was more involved than just starring in the show. And I think it really was an attempt at disclosure.
Right. Oh, I would have to agree with that. Once you become aware of what's actually going on in the world, you look at everything, including and especially entertainment. I remember early on in my podcasting journey, I did entire shows talking about this. Like, oh my God, it's like you once you wake up, you look back on all the things that you used to watch, and you see it through an entirely different lens. And I think that's probably. It's been part of the information war for a very long time. It's not as if the White Hats, I mean, you mentioned the 60-year plan. It's not as if the White Hats just suddenly appeared out of nowhere on, when Q started posting on 4chan in 2017, or even when Trump came down the escalator, or even a few years before that when they formulated the 60,000-man secret army that we reference so often. And by the way, happened to be the very same year that Turning Point USA got started, when Charlie Kirk was only a teenager, and somehow, some way, I mean, brilliant guy, don't get me wrong, but somehow, some way was able to parlay this into what it became, with presumably no backers, doing it all on his own, But anyway, this goes all the way back to. Well, I mean, I guess it depends on how far you really want to go back. Probably goes back to the days of Lincoln in the wake of the Civil War, but more often we put it into the context of the assassination of JFK. This has been part of the information war for a very long time. We have a very, very solid understanding of how the enemy would use Hollywood and would use the music and basically the entertainment industry as a whole to engage in predictive programming and basically all of the things that we typically associate with Hollywood, now that we look at it with different eyes. Right. But there's also, as you're pointing out there, is just one example of how the White Hats have been doing the exact same thing. For a long, long time, they've been engaged on that battlefield of entertainment, in essence, to counter the cabal's strategy of engaging in predictive programming, because, as we know, the collective consciousness, generally speaking, dictates our timeline, right? So, like, if we're all basically in agreement or thinking in the same way about things, that more or less determines the timeline that we're on. And so the White Hats were doing the same exact thing, engaged in that battle. One example that always comes to mind for me is The Matrix. I mean, back when that movie came out, was in the late 90s. It was like 1998, 1999. nobody was thinking along the lines that nobody was looking at that movie in the same way that we do now. But you go back and you watch it and you're like, holy crap, this is basically a documentary. I mean, I don't go so far as to say literally a documentary, but a metaphorical documentary of how our energy was being harvested for the use of the enemy to implement their new world order strategy. So
there's a clip. I don't have this pulled up, but it's a very short clip. But even Field of Dreams, there was a caller that called in. It was a couple weeks ago on Open Lines with Dave and Rambo, and explaining how the Field of Dreams movie, if you build it, they will come. He needs to do this thing. And people might think he's nuts. And, you go through the movie and it's incredible. And then there's this scene in the movie where the gentleman that he picks up to take on this journey, he actually says, it's either I haven't written a book in 17 years. And I'm just like, they didn't talk about that on the show, but I'm watching the movie and I'm like, what? He literally said that. So if I find that clip,
man, they're raining them down at this point.
Yeah, they are. I wanted to do a shout out to our sponsor for the show. One of them is Sirona. It's just a short clip here, and then we'll get back into part two. So if you need to use the loo or whatever you need to do, anybody, please feel free. I'll play this clip. It's only about a minute and a half, and then we'll get back into part two of the show. So our links below, both Scott and I and Patriot Underground are we've had Ethan Lucas on the shows. Anyway, this is his product, and we both promote and take Sirona. So here is the clips. Here we go.
I will never settle for ordinary supplements or skincare ever again after discovering Sirona. Let me tell you why. Sirona's revolutionary nano-sized products are designed to simplify your health and skincare routine, where less is more. Imagine the power of nano-glutathione and nano-CBD, as well as stem cells and other nanonutrients in every drop. Take Elixir for a daily boost of vitality, detox, and immunity. Or Panacea, which is perfect for improving cognitive and gut health. And don't forget our Skin Mist and Skin Plus Menet Mask, our skincare duo that leaves your skin shockingly youthful. But why nano-sized? Because smaller particles mean superior absorption and faster results. More bang for your buck and better health for you. But wait, there's more. Sirona's affiliate program offers generous payouts and overrides. That means you can earn substantial income just by sharing what you love. Join a community of wellness enthusiasts who are not only transforming their health, but also building thriving businesses that can be passed on generationally. With our 30-day guarantee, it's a risk-free way to start your journey to better health and wealth. So why wait? Dive into Sirona's next-level wellness solutions today. Visit the link below to get started. Sirona. Unlock your full potential. Remember, with Sirona, you're not just investing in your health, you're investing in your legacy. Here's to living your best life.
All right, welcome back. Scott might be gone for another moment or two, but I wanted to play a clip for the viewers from an interview that Scott and I did 3 years ago. And I think it might help answer some of the questions people have about how the cabal looks into the future, how they're able to see certain things or timelines or whatever. So we recently re-aired this interview last week, and it's done quite well. It has over, I think, 54,000 views so far. But so first, I'm going to share the thumbnail so people can look into this show, and then I'll share like a 1-minute clip from the interview. So I thought this might be interesting for people. Because we did this 3 years ago and we didn't have some of the bells and whistles that we have. Usually we would do a show and then we would upload it. And so we're going to make more clips out of this when I have time this week. So here is, if people are interested in learning about what adrenochrome actually does. This gentleman took the substance twice. He didn't believe the people that were telling him what was in the bottle 2 times, many years apart. But he ended up going up into Northern California, and he was working on what he thought was just a pot farm. But he started seeing like certain children that were doing the clippings, they were disappearing, and he really didn't know what was going on at the time. So he was trying to put this together, and he did a really good job considering this was the first time he's ever shared this information. It was originally like a 2-part series, but I put it into one show. So here is, if people are interested, here is the thumbnail for the show, first of all, and then I'll play the clip. So adrenochrome, time travel, and wormholes. So that is on our channel. And then I'm going to play this clip from the interview. So here we go.
That's when the thing with adrenochrome is, I think that it has something to do with your spirit, and it helps. Like when you go to sleep at night, who knows where we go when we sleep? If our spirit leaves our body or whatever. I almost think that's kind of like what happens when you take adrenochrome. You almost like go into a dream. And I think that people are able to see into the future with the shit. I think this might be one way that they even look into the future. I don't know. I know they're able to look into the future.
Wow. Well, maybe that's why there's such an appeal for it in this world.
Well, and why they get away with it so much, they can see the threat coming, I would imagine.
But anyway,
so yeah,
please continue.
So I don't know if you ever saw that interview, and that's why we shared it again, because I think it's 3 years ago. It might have been a little bit early. It's still a subject that it's a lot to process. And this actually came about. I used to help Nicholas Vignamin with his guests, and this email came in to Nicholas, and I think Nicholas ended up doing like a 30-minute interview with this guy named Kevin. But Scott and I were able to really go deep, and it was quite groundbreaking. And and in the comments, guys, if you've ever heard of what adrenochrome actually does from anyone else that's actually taken it, let us know, because I don't know if someone has talked about it quite like this before. But had you ever had a chance to see that Patreon Underground?
I don't think so. I don't recall that interview, but it's possible that I did. I mean, I've definitely seen a lot of stuff on adrenochrome. I've never really heard that angle though, of how it can enable some sort of ability to see into the future. That
neither.
That I certainly haven't heard. But interesting, very interesting.
Yeah. And, someone just put this comment, because we've been wondering about the flooding that's going on in Washington State as well, because literally there's a section on Highway 2 that it's gone. I can try and find a picture of that, but this comment is right here. I live in Washington State, and the flooding here is horrifying. It's weird to immediately think the white hats are flooding the underground tunnels here, which they certainly could be. I don't know, but it does not seem normal in any way, shape, or form.
Well, that's something that's been going on now for years.
Right.
The flooding of the underground tunnels. I haven't talked about it in a while, but because I do believe that, I certainly think that that's still going on. There's still a very kinetic mop-up operation that's happening in tandem with the what I perceive to be the number one objective right now, which is basically what we were talking about a little while ago in the previous segments, which is uniting the public around this great awakening. That's really what's where we're at in terms of the overall scope of the mission right now. But certainly, somebody just put in the comments there, watch the water. We've been told that for a long time. We've been talking about DUMS for years now. So would it surprise me in the least bit if that's still actually going on? No, actually, it would surprise me if it weren't going on. This is a vast, the vastness of the underground world and the DUMS and all of these different tunnels. I don't think that any of us can even fully wrap our brains around the scope of it. That's something that's probably going to be ongoing for many years, even beyond the big booms that we're awaiting here on the surface. So, yeah, I think that's still very real and still going
Well,
on.
in Washington State, think of the companies that are up here. And just if people don't know, I'm in Washington State. Scott is in Arizona, and Ben is on the East Coast. And but if you think of Bill Gates and Amazon and all the companies that are up here, and you think of the submarines and the Puget Sound, like, and I have a very, very dark feeling every time I drive near or through the town of Bremerton. There's just something about that, and I've always felt this darkness, and that's right on the Puget Sound. And so it wouldn't surprise me, because we watch all these tragedies throughout, whether it's Hawaii or California or back east. And, we've been wondering what is going to happen up in the Northwest. And, I pray that, Mount Rainier doesn't explode or something like that. But these rains, I think that is the way that either the white hats or the black hats or whomever is flooding things intentionally with weather manipulation. So, and that's one of the reasons I would say.
Oddly, we haven't had any hurricanes this year. Isn't that strange?
It is yeah, it actually is.
I can't remember a year that we didn't have hurricanes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like DARPA's taking an extended vacation or something, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, well, there's always that question too of like, to what degree does the cabal still have the ability to manipulate the weather? What sort of weapons do they have in their arsenal, so to speak? That was something that I focused on pretty extensively for the first couple of years that I was doing shows. But I believe that primarily what we're seeing play out right now is not the black hats, it's the white hats, either engaging in those mop-up operations, those kinetic mop-up operations, or running psyops on all of us to make us more aware of all of this stuff, to make us aware of weather manipulation and chemtrails and their ability to to steer hurricanes and all of these different things. So I think my personal view is that both are happening at the same time, that the military is engaged in this process of clearing out the tunnels, and at the same time, the white hats are controlling the narrative so that people will pay more attention to it. And just like every other topic, the things that used to be considered conspiracy theories at this point in time are pretty much becoming mainstream narrative type of conversations, in the context of them still. I mean, the mainstream media that I believe is controlled by the Q operation is they're doing it under the guise of all of these crazy conspiracy theorists talking about weather manipulation and so forth, but they're amplifying the message. They're making it a mainstream talking point. And like I've said for a while now, the way that it's working is rather ingenious, because they're giving the white hats are giving the orders to mainstream media, giving them enough rope to hang themselves, or as my friend Mike King says, they're basically handing them the shovel and saying, dig. And having them put out so many truth gems, but cloaking it in the like he calls it, the street cred of the old mainstream media, so that it doesn't appear to be something out of the ordinary for folks. In other words, it's still being delivered by the what appears to be the mainstream media of old, so that people will still listen to it, and they won't. It's kind of like the frog in the pot thing. You have to turn up the volume, the temperature slowly, so that people don't realize that they're being manipulated. But at the same time, they're putting out not necessarily the truth on mainstream media, but they're introducing the key topics. Sometimes they throw some truth gems in there, but they also at the same time cast it in a negative light and still call it a conspiracy theory.
Right.
But the white hats know full well that most people, they get their news, they go to social media, to X primarily, and other platforms as well, but X is certainly the dominant one. that's where people are really going to seek out information. So they're cross-referencing all the normies out there who are still, it's a dwindling amount, the amount of folks out there who are actually still watching and paying attention and believing in mainstream media. I mean, that's like at a historic low. Trust in the mainstream media has never been lower. And by the way, it's never been lower in terms of our judicial system, in terms of Congress, across the board. And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier in terms of building that consensus beneath the surface across party lines. But what's happening with the news is that they're putting out these topics on mainstream media. They're lying about them, but they're introducing the narrative, and then it gets picked up and amplified on social media, and more people get red pilled in that process. And weather modification is certainly a big part of that as well, because they've used that
Right.
as a massive weapon for a long time now. And indeed, the idea of being able to steer hurricanes, being able to control the weather, being able to to cause flooding and all these other things, and the chemtrails, that's been considered something that was just absolutely ridiculous conspiracy theory. But now, not so much. Just about everything that was considered an outlandish idea is gradually becoming more and more mainstream. And if you look at the stuff on social media, you look at the articles that are being put out, regardless of where they're coming from, whether they're from mainstream outlets or not, you can look at the comment section. That's why most people, like, before they even read an article, like they'll read the headline, but then they'll go straight to the comment section, because that's where the truth is in terms of the public awakening. If you want to know, if you want to be able to gauge or use as a barometer something that'll tell you whether or not the plan is working, whether or not people are actually waking up, you can't expect that you're going to just walk into your local coffee shop or go to work with the same people or sit down at the dinner table with your family and get that type of barometer from those interactions. But when you go online and you read the comments, you see that pretty much everyone is waking up and they're going, this stuff is all real. And that's really the beauty of the ingenious way that they're using the mainstream media to further the Great Awakening, to advance the Overton window, which is also a term that's been picked up. Elon Musk has used that term, the Overton window, several times in the past few weeks on multiple different subjects. And that's really what it's all about. It's about advancing the Overton window so that people will come to what appears to them to be an organic awakening, never really understanding or realizing the way we do that they're having their strings pulled.
Right.
So,
right. I want to ask, and I'm going to play this clip from Lewis Herms, because first of all, I think if people aren't aware of Lewis Herms, he's running for governor of California. I'm going to put up his website right here, and anyone can, donate, get the word out. We all must have some friends or family in California. And this clip is about Lewis talking about the algorithms and how important sharing is. And Scott and I have talked about this on the show. I used to be a precinct committee officer in Washington State. And, I was kind of disappointed by some of the inner workings, even in the Republican Party, just because there's some infighting going on. So I put more of the focus on this show. And Scott was privy to a lot of that. And basically, but what I did learn is there's shares, there's likes, and there's comments. And the importance of these are so massive. Like, I don't know, and we can get into this with you, Underground, is I don't know what your experience has been like on X, but like, we'll do these shows and there's hardly any likes, there's hardly any comments. And the importance of it is so massive, because how is anyone going to learn about this stuff? Now, granted, not everybody can watch a 2-hour show, but there's clips I've shared that people can like on our X. Clips go on your X and share it. But this is a clip, and so if anyone can do anything for us, is share this clip of Lewis Herms that's on our X, because it helps get the word about him and his mission. Because some people may not want to like something for whatever reason. I get that, but I'm going to play this clip of Lewis just because it's pretty powerful and it goes at exactly what I'm talking about. So let me pull this up here. Here's Lewis Herms, hopefully the governor of California, 2020.
The way the algorithms of now are working your comment or like on a post, and if you have one follower, is as powerful as somebody that has 1 million.
Got it.
So if you, and this is a we the people candidacy, this is not a Lewis Herms candidacy. So
Right.
if you really want us to win, if you want to win, you can be in New York, you can be in Ireland. If you want us to win, you can be part of the solution. So go to hermsforcali.com, subscribe to your favorite social media. You just go click on those, click on the ones that are up there. Probably TikTok's not up there because we just lost our 7th account, but that's all right. We'll get another one back up soon. But just go there and make sure you click on follow and notifications. And then every time you see a post, just heart it and make a quick comment. The algorithms will just, they blow up. So this is how we get the word out. Now, the way the
So, that, and I'll just look at this right now. That this clip has, I think, 30 likes, and this should be something that is going viral. But I've had a problem. I'll take clips from other shows, and it's like a 2-minute trailer for an entire 2-hour show, and I can't even get the people that created the show or that are hosting the podcast to even share it. And I'm not even doing this for TruthStream. I want to get the word out about clips and other shows and like the Mickey clip and other things like that. But I don't know what the deal is with X, but it's just, for us, it's been very challenging to grow it, etc. We're on this is our 10th X account, whether it's between my own or the shows. We've lost 3 TikToks, our 5th YouTube. It's just been daunting. But what has the censorship been like for you, Patriot Underground? I'm curious.
Well, I'll be honest. I haven't experienced much of that. I don't really know. I'm not too well versed in how the whole shadow banning process actually works, but I can tell you that I haven't noticed that my content specifically has been suppressed. It might be. It wouldn't really surprise me all that much. I think there's 2 different ways to look at it, because obviously we have free speech now on X. I mean, there are still some things that get censored. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it's across the board, but the reality is that most topics, most lines of discussion are not only allowed on X, but they actually are encouraged. So there's that. But I also believe that there's probably a degree of manipulation behind the scenes in terms of what the white hats want the dominant conversations to be. In other words, they can steer the algorithms in any direction that they want to in order to steer the conversation ultimately. So when it comes to specific examples, I mean, I think you kind of have to take each one individually. But what I'm seeing more of is the Q related content, the quote unquote conspiracy Q content being boosted on Rumble specifically. I mean, if you look at Rumble, most of the time you look at the leaderboard, at least half of that content is the type of stuff that we talk about on a regular basis. So there's definitely that hidden hand behind the scenes that's pushing that stuff out there, that wants that to be exposed to more and more people. But as it pertains to specific subjects, certainly they can do that. They have the ability to push it out there and also to pull it back. I have a relatively small following on X because I was pretty late to the party. I was never on Twitter when it was Twitter. And I really did not have much of an interest in getting onto X even after Elon took it over, because I was in the Telegram world. That was really my sphere there. But gradually I started to realize that X was becoming really probably already was, but certainly after Elon took it over, it was becoming the dominant battlefield of the information war. So I got on X. And I've, my account's been gradually growing. It certainly hasn't blown up or anything along those lines. I think I started really becoming active on X. I would say maybe like 6 months ago, somewhere around there. And I at that point in time, I might have had, I don't know, a few thousand people following me, and I'm up to like 15,000 at this
Right.
point. And generally speaking, I find that my content and the amount of engagement that I get with the stuff that I put out there is pretty much in line with the size of following that I have. And there have actually been a couple of cases where I've posted things that have gone viral, which was kind of shocking to me. I remember with going back to the Charlie Kirk thing. You guys remember the video of Erica Kirk with her Masonic jewelry on,
Yeah.
and like leaning over the casket, and she's grieving, and
So
she's
weird.
crying, and it's like literally a mannequin. I mean, you can actually tell that it's a mannequin in the casket. And I posted a video of that, and I said, "Who does this? Like, this is not normal behavior. You don't." And again, I don't want to go back into the Charlie Kirk thing, but just for context, I basically said, you don't, like, who allows somebody to actually like video them grieving over their dead husband with all of this weird Masonic jewelry on? Who allows them to video it, number one? And then number two, probably even more importantly, why would she then go and post it on Instagram? She
Very
posted
weird. That's
on
not normal
Instagram.
behavior at
So I
all.
just posed that question. I didn't even like make any statements. It was kind of
Sure.
just was who does this type of thing. And at that point in time, I had probably less than 10,000 followers, and that post got like 7 million impressions.
Because they're
on
text guys.
X.
Yeah.
Thank
Wow.
So, and most of my stuff doesn't even come close to that, because again, I mean, usually, generally speaking, the amount of impressions that you get on your content is commensurate to the amount of following, the size following that you have. But
And the retweets, like we've posted a few comment or clips of David Martin. One of them's a 30-minute video that he did that he, because what's been great is I know I usually get the heads up from our friend Frank Prieb when David Martin's, putting out new content. So he doesn't really have a team that edits any of his stuff. So I'll put that up. And when David shares something, then a lot more people see it. So that's the beauty of having, the person that we're showcasing to retweet it, what have you, because then it has a chance. Because I mean, I don't know, other than a couple of David Martin clips, we really haven't had anything go viral. And it's not necessarily to go viral. It's just, I feel if I'm moved by something and I can take a very small clip of it that's an hour long, that a lot of people, might also find that important as well. So,
I think, not to interrupt you, but I do think that one of the things that Lewis was saying in that clip is absolutely vital for people to understand, which is that it kind of goes along with nothing is as it seems, right? That just because certain content doesn't seem to be getting the type of engagement that you would want it to or expect it to, that the way in reality, what he was pointing out is that the way that the algorithms work is that even if a person even if a post gets a small amount of interaction, it can actually boost it up so that more and more people can see it. So it's really, it's tough to gauge all that.
It is.
A lot of the stuff that goes really viral, you kind of scratch your head and you go, well, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't seem all that important.
Right.
But I think that there's definitely an element of truth to that, where people can even on a smaller scale. And Elon has talked about this in terms of X continuing to work with the algorithm, to boost the content of lower following accounts so that people get more and more exposure. And so I do think that there's an element of truth to that, which is why we shouldn't necessarily, it's frustrating, but we shouldn't think that necessarily the stuff that we're putting out there isn't getting the amount of exposure that it should, because it actually might be reaching a lot more people than we realize.
Good. That's a good point. That's a great point. And, we have to stay on that topic too long. I just wanted to, because it's just, it's just really, the bottom line is it's really helpful when people share clips, especially the one for Lewis, because if Lewis, I want to say when Lewis gets elected as governor of California, like, can you imagine the message that sends the rest of the country and the world to have a flip like that? Like, that could be a paradigm shift for humanity in and of itself. That's how important it is to get Lewis Herms elected. I mean, it's just incredible. And Scott's been spending a lot of time, with him in California, and I went down last month as well. But what an amazing guy. And to even think a year ago when he was doing the Unity tour, and I was flattered and appreciated. He had the concept of writing a song for that, and he actually approached me and he wanted a "We Are the World," and I'm like, man, I can give you the Traveling Wilburys, but I can't get a studio full of people to do that with no budget. So, but anyway, my point is to see him go from driving around in an old RV, the shift that he's made to be running now for governor, it's like it's amazing. It's an absolute calling, and I can't think of a better person to take this on, because he really has such an amazing background. He gets things done. He has a movie coming out, I think, on Wednesday. We'll be posting that as well. I should be getting the clip at some point today. That's like the trailer. But I mean, if I can get one result out of these shows, of the 530 shows that Scott and I have done roughly, is to get Lewis Herms elected. I mean, that's like our main mission now, I think. Scott, anything you want to say on that subject?
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, where California goes, the rest of the country goes in many, many ways, economically and otherwise. I just got back from an event in Los Angeles, and I was really surprised. Living in Washington, which is very liberal. We've always heard about California being so incredibly liberal, but it's not nearly as liberal, I don't think, as Washington or Oregon. And I think there's a real fighting chance there. And it was a lot of fun to hang out with Lewis on my birthday in Ireland. That was fantastic. But I wanted to switch gears here just a little bit, because I think it was, and this is for you, Underground, especially. I think it was last week or the week before, Dan Scavino posted a long form Asimdorum performance by Bocelli, I believe.
Bocelli,
And, it was just pointing at the timing was interesting with everything that we've got going on in the world. And if you look at how the pieces are placed on the board, that was clearly the score for the final scene in Sum of All Fears, which is referenced in the Q drops multiple times. I'm just wondering if that has an awful lot to do with where we're at with Israel right now. There's a lot of talk, and I've heard it from at pretty high levels, about suitcase nukes and whatnot around the country. I think we're going to see an event that involves that to some degree. The movie's about a rogue nuke. Do you have any personal insight into that, or are you seeing us creeping closer to that very event? Because also there's what scare event is necessary. We've got this whole lineup of things we've sort of been waiting to kick off, and lately things have, I don't want to say stagnated, but we're sort of in this circular pattern. There's not any trajectory right now. So where do you think we're going, and how does that post from Scavino factor in your estimation?
That's a great question. I mean, I do think in terms of the trajectory, I believe is very much leading in that direction. And I would also agree with you that it seems almost like over the past week or so, it's kind of bizarre to even say it in the context of the Great Awakening. But you're right, there has been kind of a sort of a lull in the news cycle. There hasn't been as much as we've gotten used to. I mean, 2025 was just like, it seemed like another day, another psyop, really, for the most part. But they're ratcheting up the tension on all of these different things that we've mentioned already tonight, but we haven't talked about the geopolitical stuff. And to the extent that I think that that is very much on the radar, for me personally, I would say big time, big time. We could certainly talk about Israel. I mean, Israel is tied in to. I mean, can you guys even think of anything that we've mentioned tonight that doesn't some way tie back to Israel?
No.
Okay, so there's that, right? So Israel, and I continue to believe that the major domino that's going to fall, that's going to open up the floodgates in terms of disclosure on Israel and then lead to 9/11 disclosure and so forth, is going to be what's most recent in people's minds, which was the 10/7 event in Israel. That was a fake false flag in my view, but nevertheless, it's become an international conversation that this was a stand down order, which it would by definition, that would be a false flag event. If you add the extra F to it, the fake part, that's where we come in here in terms of the scripted movie. But we'll put that aside for the moment. The point is that everybody is talking about Israel in some way, shape, or form, whether it be with regard to the so-called genocide going on in Gaza, whether it be with regard to Netanyahu and his pardons, I mean, and then on the domestic side, Israel. I mean, you recall just about a month ago when everybody was talking about Israel, quote unquote, buying up all the networks, and then there was Netanyahu saying that we have to get a control of TikTok. TikTok is so important. That's like our number one priority. And then within a matter of days, Larry Ellison purchases TikTok.
Yeah.
So it's tied into everything. It's tied into Charlie Kirk, the whole narrative surrounding that. Everybody knows at this point, but I'll just say it really, really quickly. The theory is that Candace Owens has put out there was that Charlie Kirk was turning on Israel. And that was the reason that he was taken out. And she even went so far as to say that Bill Ackman offered him pretty much like a whole suitcase full of cash to keep carrying the cross for Israel, like to keep supporting Israel. And he turned it down just a couple of days before he was supposedly executed. So Israel is central to that. And indeed, as you pointed out in the movie, Sum of All Fears, it was about a rogue nuke. We've heard a lot about the Samson option that Israel ultimately would, before it accepted any sort of defeat, if the walls are closing in, they'd rather just go ahead and nuke the entire world. Do I think that that's going to happen? No, certainly not. But the optics are very, very much in play. So with regard to Israel, I would say they're tied into just about everything. Somebody just posted the CIA, IC1, the CIA/love affair needs to end. That's really what's starting to emerge more and more with all of these different events that we've talked about tonight. So
there isn't a whole lot of distinction between the two. Yeah.
And then, of course, there's also the whole situation going on in Ukraine and between Russia and NATO. Was it maybe a couple of weeks ago that Putin came out and he said that maybe not even a couple of weeks, maybe about a week. It's hard for me to gauge time because so much is happening so quickly. But recently, Putin came out and said that Europe, specifically NATO, the NATO countries, are sabotaging all of Trump's efforts and Russia's efforts as well to try to bring about an end of the war. And he went a step further to say that we're not seeking war with Europe. We're not seeking war with NATO. But if they start a war with Russia, we are ready to go. And then you had the NATO chief, Mark Rutte, I think is his name, came out just a couple of days after that. And he said, Europe has to prepare essentially for a world war, basically on the scale of what our grandfathers and great grandfathers went through. In other words, basically, we're gearing up for World War III. That was the message that they were sending.
Well, certainly, if you remember the the attention on Saudi Arabia, it almost felt like the announcement that this is our new greatest ally in the Middle East. And, there was sort of the pushing aside to some small degree, Israel. And things looked like they were definitely going in that direction, which I saw as a net positive in a big way. And then suddenly we were thrust right back into the Israel thing again. And that really made me think of some of our fears and that there is some leverage here, a lot of leverage, and whether it's Epstein level leverage or whether it's something like, staged nukes, I don't know. I think it's probably bigger than Epstein. But, these things are so intertwined. And, when you see these governments, how they utilize other governments to influence public perception, like China using, working with the cartels in Mexico to, advance certain opinions and so on. And it's clearly bad actors, Chinese actors, but we're looking at it as if it were Mexico. These things are so multi-layered that it's and this is just what we're privy to. Imagine what's going on behind the scenes that's, totally top secret.
Right.
So
Yeah. Well, Israel, Q drop 140, made it very clear. I'm pretty sure it's 140. What if Russia, China, and others are working with POTUS to bring about the end of the New World Order? And it's been said many times that when Q asks a question, it's actually really a statement. He's telling us. Not only that, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Kirill Dmitriev. I'm sure you guys know all about him. This guy is the I can't remember what his official title is, but something along the lines of like he's a special envoy to President Putin for the West. But I can't remember in the context what his actual title is. It escapes me at the moment. But he has been posting literal Q drops for months now, talking about dark to light, mentioning Nessun Dorma, where we go one, we go all, and amplifying all of the major content, the content of major Q influencers out there. He's been doing exactly that. I mean, he's been sharing and interacting with MJ Truth, who's got a huge following on X as well, and many others, where he has been putting out, he's been commenting, he's been interacting with Q people to underscore, I think, the ultimate message that we were given very early on in the drops. And 140, that was pretty early on when Q told us that nothing is what it seems, because the major superpowers of the world, Russia, China, and the US, and others, by the way, are all working in tandem to bring about the end of the New World Order. So the way I see it is that this is all part of the movie. I don't think that there's any real threat of another world war. I mean, we were told overtly that there's not going to be a civil war, there's not going to be a world war, but this is all building up to create, just like we talked about with different subjects tonight, that sense of tension, to build up that sense of tension, to make it appear as if that we are careening toward World War III, and that the deep state, the cabal, is ultimately pushing this agenda, and they're sabotaging all of the efforts that are being made in order to bring about world peace. And there's probably going to be some form of a scare event that is going to make it seem as if we're right on the cusp of that. And I imagine, just like we talked about earlier with the potential for false flags on U.S. soil, this time it's all going to, in the aftermath, it's all going to blow back on the deep state, and everybody's going to see. It's like the curtain's going to be pulled back, and everybody's going to see the hidden hand behind the scenes that's been trying to steer the world in this direction in order to implement their agenda. But I don't think that this is in any way real. I think this is a replay of either events that took place in the past or a reenactment of what their agenda was and what they were attempting to do in order to, again, show everybody the truth about who the real power players are behind the scenes, how they operate, and what their agenda is. So, it's very, it's interesting because for a while, I remember going into the election, the presidential election, and all of Trump's rallies. He was playing Nessun Dorma like almost
Yeah.
constant,
Right.
and then it sort of went away for a little while. And just like with everything else, I often use the metaphor of like the chef in the kitchen preparing this massive feast, and certain things go on the front burner, and then they pull it off, and then they put
Yep.
something else in. And I don't think a lot of people will say, "Well, they're just trying to distract us with all of this." With all this, I think that we're beyond, quite honestly, uh, the objective of trying to distract us. I think that they're actually trying to do just the opposite. They're trying to shine a spotlight and get everybody's attention on what the deep state's agenda really was. And in order to do that, it has to appear real. It has to appear as if this is all organically playing out. But if you look at all the clues and you evaluate all the different comms, and you can see the coordinated messaging that's happening, you can tell, you can scratch the surface and tell that this is all part of that scripted movie concept that we talk about over and over. And I would say that more often than not, what we're subjected to is some version of that. It's some sort of a psychological operation along those lines. But I think we're way beyond the whole concept of, oh, they're just trying to distract us with something while something else goes on over here. I think that was true for a certain period in the operation before the White Hats gained full control. But I do believe we're beyond that at this stage.
Well, and I wanted to get both your guys' comments just on this. Is this part of the movie as well, or is this to get people upset? Yeah. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. In my opinion, yes. I mean, look, I don't have all the answers. I think everybody knows that. I'm just giving you my take on all these things. But do I believe that we're still sending Ukraine? That was a big thing that came out. Oh, all the black pillars. Oh, Trump he's sending money to Ukraine, and he's sending money to Israel, and all of these things. And it's like, no, this is all part of the movie. It's all part of getting people pissed off, getting people to ask questions, getting people to demand answers. And remember, we are not the target audience. We're not the ones who are supposed to be looking at all this stuff and wringing our hands. Like we're the ones who are that the Q team is relying upon to be the calm in the storm, that steady hand that understands and can guide people through this entire process. When you hear about weapons being sent over to Ukraine, when you hear about millions and millions of dollars, billions of dollars being sent to Israel, and being, in all of these different things, it's to do exactly that. But that's child's play. They can just make an announcement like that and put it out there. It doesn't mean that it's real.
Well, these are fiat dollars that are part of a defunct financial system, or near defunct anyway. So it's sort of like monopoly money in making these moves, I think. That's the only thing that really gives me any comfort, because I do find it infuriating. But I think so much of this deep state activity, I think, is clearly steered by intelligence apparatus, and the CIA being the most obvious. I remember my father's best friend was the head of federal firearms training for all federal law enforcement divisions, and he asked me, and this was pre 9/11. He asked me, Scott, how many law enforcement divisions are there in the federal government? And I came up with like 14 or 15, and he said there are 70. And that number surely doubled after Homeland Security was formed and so on, following 9/11. So this gets real complex really fast. And then you had the Five Eyes arrangement, where these intelligence agencies found a way around all the jurisdictional impediments to their activities, which gave them so much power that it was just absolutely unbelievable. And then you have Ghislaine Maxwell's sisters, who authored the software that's utilized throughout the intelligence community, in multiple countries, and don't think they didn't build in a back door. And their father is a Mossad hero. So, I think if anybody's got access to all of the information, it would most certainly be Mossad. But these are extra constitutional bodies that I don't see very many examples of them working on behalf of the people in any instance. They're almost always working on an agenda that does not fall in the purview of the interest of our country. Or
Well, you're exactly right, and this is starting to become more and more obvious to people as time goes on. The Five Eyes, in particular, are all basically controlled by organizations that are directly connected to Israel. So, like with Australia, you've got the AIJAC, which is the Australia Israel Jewish Affairs Council. With Canada, you've got the Canadian Jewish Advocacy. With New Zealand, you've got the New Zealand Jewish Council. With the United Kingdom, you've got the Board of Deputies of British Jews. In the United States, you have APAC. All right. So these are all organizations that are directly tied in to Israel, to Mossad, and they are controlling the entire chessboard. And that's starting to become more and more obvious to people as time goes on. Maybe not so much all of the normies, but gradually this stuff is coming out where, I mean, the more people are talking about Israel, the harder it becomes to avoid the question of, and by the way, here in the United States, highlighting the three-letter agencies, highlighting our, and putting a huge question mark of suspicion around our intelligence community, the FBI, the CIA, it becomes harder and harder to avoid the Israel question. And I think that's gradually what they're building up to. But it's been well known for, at least inside of the truth community, for a long time now, that Mossad is right at the top of the pyramid, and they control the CIA. It was overtly stated in the Q drops, and I mean, we've been talking about how much of the conversation just here in the U.S. has been revolving around APAC. This whole the optics of this manufactured split within MAGA over, is MAGA Israel first, or is MAGA America first? And, so you've got all of the people like Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham and Randy Fine. And, and then of course you see Jonathan Greenblatt on TV just about every day. And all of these other individuals, Barry Weiss, they're constantly in the spotlight. And that really is the whole point. As long as they remain in the spotlight, the more people are going to question, the more people are going to dig, and the more they're going to discover in the process. And of course, the white hats are going to manifest that. They're going to continue to inject these narratives into the social media space, into the media landscape, so that people will discuss it, and they're going to figure it out. That's the way the game is played. And there's just a little graphic here that I can pull up just to show folks.
Yeah.
In terms of the Five Eyes, what I was searching for it while I was talking, I couldn't find it right away, but there you go. Okay, there's like direct influence, the Israel influence over the entire Western intelligence apparatus. So there you go. It's right
Very
in your
good.
face.
Oh, and don't forget, Mexico is run by a Jewish lady.
Yeah, right.
I mean, they're really run by cartels, so
Scheinbaum, right? And they're all, you saw what happened a few weeks back in Mexico, where they had the massive uprising, and they were basically, they were outside of the government buildings there in Mexico, and they were creating all kinds of havoc because they're protesting her as a narco president.
Well, sure makes you wonder who's running the cartels, doesn't it?
Well, sure. I mean, or who the cartels are running is probably a better way to say it. But, to the degree that that's actually still the case, that's debatable. One of the question marks that I've had for a while now is, to what degree have the cartels been subdued? And that's part of what I believe is when I mentioned earlier, there are certain aspects of the operation that are mop-ups that are going on. I think that's very, very real possibility there. I would say very likely that the military engagements that we're hearing about, not so much the blowing up of the drug boats, because I think that's probably footage of stuff that already happened. But as it pertains to Venezuela, I mean, Trump just came out and said land strikes are going to start soon. I do think that there is a big kinetic aspect to that, which is real, because as we know, I mean, the cabal, you can't just say, well, we cut off the leadership and even the mid-tier people, and okay, so we're done now. No, the largest amount of individuals is at the bottom, on the bottom tier. And so that's a massive cleanup operation that needs to take place. Do I think the White Hats are in full control of that? Yes. Do I believe that Maduro in Venezuela capitulated a long time ago, and that we're watching sort of the rollout of an agreement that was made probably years ago? Yes, I do. And Venezuela is interesting too, because as I mentioned earlier, it's going to be a key aspect of the exposure of the election theft of 2020. The Smartmatic stuff. I mean, all of
Right.
a sudden, Patrick Byrne, who's been quiet now for years, just popped out of nowhere, and oh yeah, by the way, I'm a CIA asset, and they're talking about Smartmatic, and Sidney Powell is being re-injected into the conversation. I think that Venezuela is going to play a huge role in that aspect of disclosure. So,
I met Patrick Byrne in Vegas not too long ago.
oh, did you?
He's so tall. My God, he's tall, but really, really cool guy. Very gracious. He's a lot of interesting insights, I think.
Yeah, and people get all caught up in who's the good guys and who's the bad guys.
Right.
And again, it's kind of like we were talking about earlier. I spent a lot of time trying to figure that out. What makes a good movie, great actors. So who are the actors? Who are really the good guys and who aren't? It's impossible to tell. You can only speculate on that stuff. And in my opinion, it's just like with Marjorie Taylor Greene, all the kayfabe that we've been seeing, with Elon and Marjorie Taylor Greene and all this stuff. My view on it is that those who appear to be the good guys and those who appear to be the bad guys are basically just all playing a role along those lines. And they're doing it in such a way that it's really impossible to be able to definitively say who are the good actors and who are the bad actors. Personally, I believe that all of the major players, the people who had influence, the people who could actually steer the trajectory of the war in a different direction in the advantage of the deep state, they've been gone for a long time. Doesn't mean that all of the bad guys and all the evil has been eradicated from the world. That's not what I'm saying. And that's part of the reason why there's this ongoing mop-up operation. But as far as the power players, the people who are actually in a position to threaten us on a massive scale, with something like the Samson option or building up toward World War III or any of that stuff, I think that we're long past that at this point. We are very much in the exposure phase of the operation, and it's being done this way to camouflage where the next moves are coming from. Because indeed, we're not done yet. We're not completely out of the woods, and we've got to get rid of the lower tier, and we've also got to walk this path of continuing to awaken the people as we've been discussing tonight. So
very well said. Very well said. Well, I'm thinking that this whole 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. on Saturdays is a really good time slot for this show.
I love doing shows earlier in the day. I'll be honest with you, because especially during the week, it's a rare occurrence that happens because I have a full-time job. But when I sit down to do a podcast at like 7, 8 o'clock at night after a full day of work, I'm already tired. So it's nice to do a show on a weekend to because I personally feel like I have a lot more energy, number one. But also it's also a great time to sort of like recap everything that's happened. A lot of the time when I do my solo shows, my situation analysis updates, I typically do it on a weekend. So I can kind of look back on everything that's happened over the past couple of weeks and put it into a context for people and sort of like a recap of everything.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we're getting some feedback because for those that are familiar with TruthStream, we were doing a Friday night live series, and there was a lot of shows on Friday night at around either 3 or 6 p.m. Pacific, and we just didn't have a whole lot of interaction, and the numbers weren't all that great. So it just felt like and the shadow banning. So I think this is a great time slot. Because maybe there's not a lot of other shows right now. And, like even if you look at Rumble, I don't know how this exactly works, but, there's a lot of times it didn't matter when Scott and I would go live. It just, so we were like, and if people if people want to know our schedule, we put that in our locals, we put that on our X and our Telegram. If people are a little frustrated sometimes with when Scott and I go live, it's because we're guest centric. People in Australia, they got to do the show at a certain time, and people in Europe, it's 9 hours ahead. So, we are going to be doing some more daytime shows, but since we're focused on the guests so much, we don't just really pick an exact time because we want to make sure it's for them. So that's why it's hard to kind of maybe pin down when we're going live. But like I said, we'll be putting that in our on our social media. So, but with that, Patriot, well, Scott, anything you want to say in closing, and then we'll have Patriot Underground.
Well, I was just going to say the replay is always there, so
Right.
watch at your leisure. We love having you on the live. We love the interaction. It really enhances the show. But if you can't make it, you can't make it. Time zones are time zones, and there are. We came onto the scene pretty early, and our association with Louis Herms, God bless him, really kills our numbers in a lot of ways because there are organizations that spend a lot of money to make sure we're not hurt. So, we've got that battle, but
I hear you.
we'll take it. I mean, what else are we gonna do? I love this. I really do.
I think you guys are probably reaching a lot more than you actually realize. And I'll tell you the truth. My numbers, just in terms of viewership, they haven't been quite as big over the past couple of months. I'm not complaining about it because I still get more views than I ever imagined that in a million years when I first started doing my show. I mean, I can recall getting 500 views on my first episode, and my jaw hit the floor. I couldn't believe it. I was like, "You kidding me? 500 people actually want to hear what I have to say?" And now,
Yes.
Now we're in the tens of thousands, but the views have been a little bit less than they have been over the past couple of months. And it's not just on my channel. I've also noticed that and spoken about it with some other people that I work with behind the scenes who have noticed similar things. There's different explanations for that. I think that a lot of people, particularly as this year has gone on, there's been, and it ties directly into what we were talking about with building up the tension and pissing people off and creating that cognitive dissonance and so forth to such an extent that I think that there are people who just need to take breaks. They need to like switch off for a little while. I've seen that in my own channel where people who I haven't seen comment, and I do read the comments on my shows. And after a while, as I'm sure you guys do, you start to recognize certain names and so forth. And then, so for a couple of months, you won't really see these people. And then all of a sudden they'll come back. I've seen it happen in my comment section on Rumble. I've seen it happen in my Telegram chat group. There have been people who disappeared for like 6 months or even longer. And now all of a sudden they're back. I think that's an element of it. There's also, if I'm being honest with you, I have noticed that there's some strange stuff that goes on with Rumble sometimes.
Yeah.
I will look at I'll look at one of my videos. Let's just say I post a video and I'll go look the next day to kind of check out the comments and see the audience's reaction. And I'll see and I'll notice that all of a sudden it has like 100 less likes than it did the day before. And I'm
Right.
like, what happened to that? What's going on there? And the same thing with the view counts. Sometimes it's so crazy that I can literally be looking at my page and I can see X amount of people have viewed the video, and then I'll refresh it and it goes down by a couple of thousand.
Yeah.
So that happens. That's very real. I've actually thought about. It doesn't happen all the time. I've actually even thought about doing like a short video just to demonstrate that to people. But usually by the time I figure it out, it's already happened.
Yeah.
But it does occur. But the point, I think the larger point is that all of the efforts that we're making, and this was actually something, Joe, if you want to,
I was wondering.
This was the survey that I was referring to earlier in the show, talking about, this is the one that goes back to November of 2024. And one of the reasons that I thought that this was so important was for people to recognize that even when you think that we're not making progress, even when you think that just by sharing videos, commenting on videos, and doing things in your own way to try to proliferate this information, don't get discouraged because it's actually working. Like every one of us is a key part of this operation. Not just the people who host podcasts, but the people who are watching. If you think for 1 second that the white hats aren't monitoring all of this stuff, you're kidding yourself. And Q told us outright that they were monitoring the Patriot community. And I'll just read a brief segment of this, just for the sake of your audience. I know that my audience has already heard this, so forgive me, folks, if you've already heard this. But this is important. So as you can see up here, the rise and impact of Q. Of course, they call it QAnon believers. We all know that there's no such thing as QAnon. Okay, fine. But this was, by the way, what's the name of this organization? It's Public Religion Research Institute, which is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization conducting independent research. Blah blah blah. Okay, and from what I understand, they're a pretty reputable organization. So I'll just read the first couple of paragraphs. The 2024 presidential election has been filled with conspiracy theories led by QAnon, a conspiracy movement that emerged on the internet and remains an influential force in American politics. And then it goes down here to who is likely to be a QAnon believer. Okay. To understand this movement, PRRI has fielded a set of questions since 2021. Okay. And that's important too, because myself and others that I work with are very solid agreement that was when the White Hats really took full control after the stolen election, after January 6th. So they've been tracking this data since 2021, measuring the extent to which Americans agree or disagree with the following statements. Number one, because things have gotten so far off track, true American patriots, which I interpret to mean the military, not people running outside with their AR-15s. True American patriots may have to resort to violence in order to save the country. That's a pretty strong statement.
Yeah.
Statement number two, there is a storm coming that will sweep away the elites in power and restore rightful leaders. There's a storm coming. Gee, that sounds familiar. And then this one was hardcore. Number three, the government, media, and financial worlds in the U.S. are controlled by a group of Satan-worshiping pedophiles who run a global sex trafficking operation. Okay, so those were the three statements, and that third one hits about as hard. I mean, that's worded. They didn't pull any punches. Okay, so this is so here's the punchline. What did they find? Based on a composite score of these three statements, PRRI finds that nearly 2 in 10 Americans, 19%, call it 20%, okay, are QAnon believers. That's insane. That's 20% of the country. And then it goes on to say, followed by 49% who are doubters, and then 32 who are rejectors. Now, the way that they define a doubter, and I can't remember exactly where it is in the article. I'm trying to scan really quickly. But yeah, and by the way, we can post this in the description so folks can look at it themselves. But 49% are doubters. That means that they're not. They may have some skepticism about this stuff, but they're not outright rejecting it. So they're basically open to these ideas. And again, this was over a year ago.
Wow.
And so if you take that and you, like I mentioned earlier, I don't want to repeat myself too much here, but if you take that information and then you cross-reference it, and anybody can do this, by the way, go on Grok right now or any type of AI and ask the question, how many people are demanding or asking for the release of the Epstein files? You're going to see that it runs from 75% all the way up to 90%, depending on the poll. So if you take those two variables, those two data points, if you will, and you put them together, where do you think we're at right now, a year later?
Right.
We're probably at 40% or no, if not more. That's conservative to say 40% of people would probably fall into that first category of agreeing with those three statements.
Right.
So
Can you put that link in the chat or in the private chat? Then we can I can post it on our Rumble and etc. Then I'll put it underneath.
And the reason I emphasize this and I'll leave it at this is because again, it goes back to the efforts that we're making. Okay. It's normal to get fatigued. We're all fatigued. We're all tired. You know, we're all pissed off. We all want this to be over. We all have our questions. We all go through periods of doubting. But this is proof that the plan is actually working.
Yes.
That people are galvanizing around these core issues. So whatever you want to say about the efforts that we're making or the way that this operation is being run by the White Hats, okay, fine. But the data says something else. It says it paints a very, very different picture. So it's working. That's the point. The plan is working.
That's a brilliant. I'm really glad you brought that up. I mean, I think that
important.
Anybody watching would be thrilled to hear that.
Well,
Yeah,
I wonder
was.
how do those findings correlate with IQ? This is dense material. A lot of people don't have time or understanding for it. A lot of people enjoy the comfort of, ignorance is bliss. I often envy the folks that aren't burdened with processing this much information all the time.
Well, they're running out of real estate really fast.
They are.
And that's really the whole point is that, sure, ignorance is bliss. For a long time, people could just they make the decision, have the luxury to bury their head in the sand and to say, this is all crazy. This is all conspiracy talk. Everything's fine in the world. It's okay. Everything's fine. I'm just going to believe the official narratives and I'm going to go about my business and my life.
We have a high IQ audience.
A vast majority of the country falls into that category. And this is exactly why they have to continually run psyops on people, because it's the only way to actually achieve the objective of getting people to a place of awakening that appears to be organic, that's actually going to stick and not just kick in the door. And, the way that we all wanted them to back in 2020, that would not have worked. We've established that multiple different times. This is the reason why what you just said, Scott, is exactly the reason why it had to be this way.
Yeah.
Because you have to understand your target audience. And this is the target audience that you're trying to wake up a whole nation, a whole world of people. Well, we can just say in terms of America, a whole nation of people who don't want to be bothered. They just want to go about their business. They just want to live their lives. And by the way, we do too. That's a big part of this whole thing too. That's the reason why we want this to be over, so that we can all experience some sense of normalcy again. Right? We all want that too. But the reality is that we're not, with every passing day, as they ratchet up the tension, as they continue to turn up the volume, as they continue to pile on to all this cognitive dissonance and piss people off, it's impossible for people to ignore it. More and more, it's getting harder and harder and harder. People don't have, it's like, you're on an island and gradually the water is just getting closer and closer and closer.
Right.
And you're running out of space. And eventually you're going to have to dive into the water and you're going to have to learn how to swim. And that's, I think, that's the main objective, and it's working. So take heart in that, folks. I mean, especially as we get to the end of what has been a very difficult year. No doubt about it. I mean, this whole process has been very difficult, but I think 2025 in particular has been quite the struggle for folks because try as we may to avoid developing expectations, we are human. We do have emotions. And when Trump came back into power and hit the ground running with all these executive orders, and day one was talking about releasing the Epstein files and the JFK files. And, we're going to just basically leading people to believe that all of this stuff is just going to be immediately disclosed. And then we experience the continual rug pulls. It's been a very difficult year for people. And it causes a lot of folks to go down that really negative path, to get black-pilled and so on and so forth. But that's why these types of conversations are so key, so that people can understand not only that the plan is working, but their efforts have not been in vain. And we're like right on the cusp, I believe, of some absolutely incredible booms over the next several months. And let's not forget, we've also got the 250th anniversary of the Republic.
Right.
We've got Trump with the Ark of Victory on his desk. They're raining down the comms on all of us. Trump put out a post just recently saying we have all the cards. I mean, somebody actually posted in the comments a little while ago the Spielberg movie that's coming out. Did you guys hear about this one?
Yeah. What is that? And
I'll
it
pull
said
it up.
no
I'll pull it up.
dates.
It's here. Go ahead and pull that up.
This one here. Okay.
So this is of course our good friend Dave in News Treason caught
Nice.
this one. Billboards start popping up for Spielberg's new movie, stating all will be revealed.
Wow.
And then look at the date and do the math.
Yep.
So there you go. So they're giving us, and this is in the
17.
context of, you know, UFOs and things along those lines, which of course is a big part of the disclosure process as well. But this is just yet another example of the comms that we're being given, that 2026 is going to be a very, 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 very interesting year. And we're in for one hell of a ride. So.
Well, hey, we got 3 Eye Atlas on the 19th. It'll be as close to the planet as they're projecting it will get. Of course, it's going to come around again, but yeah, that could be a nothing burger, but I think it's going to be significant.
Agreed. Yeah. Wow, what a show, guys! This has been amazing. If people are interested, we're doing a show tomorrow with which will be Sunday, the 14th, with Nick Alvear from Good Lion TV. He has a new, I think it's an animated series that's coming out, goodlion.tv. And I need to watch that before the interview, but that's going to be at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. He's over in Hawaii. So I think I got that's the right time, right, Scott? Yeah. So it's 2 for him. So any upcoming news from either of you guys, or anything else you want to say, just to let people know what's going on?
Scott?
Well, I'm excited to catch up with Nick tomorrow. I think that's going to be a great show. We've got all kinds of cool things in the works. Trying to do a pretty interesting show with Michael Jaco. Hopefully that'll be coming up. I don't know. Our calendars, it's been crazy lately. So, yeah.
Well, that's awesome, guys. I have, let's see, I've got next week. Well, I mean, I do my Monday show with Mike King every week. So if you guys, if anybody in your audience isn't following my channel, it would be wonderful if you could give me a follow. And likewise, anybody who follows me who's not following Joe and Scott on TruthStream, please hit that follow button. You guys really have to. And I always say, just to kind of sing your praises, you guys inspire me in the sense that not only do I know when I get on with you, it's just going to be a really fun, really interesting conversation that's just going to be free flowing and, without structure, which is, to be honest with you, it's kind of the way I prefer it. And I think a lot of folks, I mean, people have different tastes, obviously, but I do think that there's a lot of people out there, I would argue the majority, that really enjoy unscripted dialogue where people are, just articulately explaining what's going on, giving our take on things, and bouncing ideas off of each other. And I think with you guys, and I would also put Dave and Mark in that category as well. I can just show up for a show and just, and Mike King too, because honestly, when I have Mike King on, it's really primarily it's Mike's content that we're highlighting. And for sure, I just kind of pop in and make some comments, but I really love the work that you guys are doing. And I've said it before that there's no lanes on TruthStream. There's this thing. Oh yeah, you got to pick a lane. You guys are like swerving into every lane, like all over the highway. And I think that's fantastic. That's exactly what the movement needs more of. And I highly respect that. So again, make sure you guys are following and supporting what Joe and Scott are doing, because it's absolutely vital to our movement. I've been friends with these guys, like I said, for years now. Our relationship goes back to before I even came on camera, which was like a whole different era for me. And here we are, still going strong, still working together, and I love it. So, So anyway, we got Mike King. I got Mike King on Monday, and then next Thursday I'm going to be on with Jeff Spike Wong. I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he's a very interesting guy who I didn't really know much about him, but he works with on redpills.tv, which is a very popular platform that's run by Josh Reed, who I have a lot of respect for. Josh Reed is a great anon. So I'm going to be on with him. He invited me on his show on Thursday at 5 o'clock. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And then I've got the following week, I normally do a show with Dave and, well, actually, Mark is kind of scaling back a little bit now. Usually it's like Mark, Dave, and myself. But I think for the foreseeable future, Mark is kind of taking a step back. He's got a lot of things you guys know, he's working on a lot of different things on the side. And he's got his Respect show. And he's also retired. I had a conversation with Mark the other day, and he's like, I'm exhausted. And, sometimes I have to remind myself that I'm retired right now. I'm supposed to be relaxing a little bit. So
he's 72, but his hair is like 30. I mean, it's just amazing head of hair.
Well, I absolutely, I love Mark. He and I have had such a great relationship right from the beginning. So it saddens me a little bit to know that he's not going to be appearing on these shows on a regular basis. But he assured me that, we're still going to do work together. So, and I know we will. But anyway, I think that Dave and I are planning on recording a show on the 23rd. A couple of days before Christmas, and then we're going to put it out on Christmas so that folks out there will have something hopefully interesting to watch. Same thing we did on Thanksgiving. We recorded the day before and we put it out on Thanksgiving because we know that not only do people enjoy watching the shows, but on holidays it can be very, very difficult for people.
And
having that sense of a place to go. And that's really something we always have to remember. We have we've done more than just start a podcast. We've created communities, and the community, the people inside of our communities are such amazing folks. And there's a lot of crossover there in between my audience, your audience, Dave's audience, and Mark.
Right.
But the point being is that giving folks a place to come together and to be able to communicate with others, especially around the holidays, really, really important. It's something that we feel strongly about. So we're going to record that. And then for the following Saturday after that, I've got the Maestro coming back. We're going to be doing a show together. And I love the Maestro. He's one of my favorite people. So I'm going to be doing a live show with his audience. So I did that once before about a year ago, and it was a fantastic experience. Still blows my mind to think that these shows have a worldwide impact. I mean, there's literally people all over the world. You guys, same with you. Who knew that when we decided that we were going to have so many fans out there and people who love our content and are part of our community.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And I forgot we're to mention that we're going to be on with Mark next Sunday. I think that's going to be the 21st on Respect. And then we're putting together an event with Alyssa Valentino and a woman named Donna, and it's going to be in New York, and it's going to be the last weekend in April, and hopefully Patriot Underground joins us and is able to be there with us. So we'll get more into details on that as we're putting it together.
I think I remember you guys bringing that up to me. I'd forgotten about that, but we'll talk off air about it.
Yeah, we'll talk off air. So I'm just going to share. Go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to say before we sign off, I do want to give a shout out to Matt Geiger with Verity Metals. He's like family at this point. We all work with him, and he's the most ethical guy in the precious metals business.
Yep.
If you're sitting on a 401k and you're seeing what's happening with silver, and you're watching what's happening with fiat and how crazy things are getting, Matt's the guy to call. So, and Joe, if you want to throw his number up, but.
I couldn't agree more. I started working with Matt because of you guys. You were the ones who put me in touch with him, and wow, am I grateful for that. He's an incredible guy. We've done some great shows together thus far, and unfortunately, I mean, we're kind of like near the end now, but that's a whole other topic right now. The silver squeeze that's really exposing the fiat dollar, as you said. That is you want to talk about a barometer, a signal. I mean, you're watching silver go up like that. Whoa, baby, get ready, because that's a real. I'm not going to go into it now, but that is a major movement, an indicator that the fiat system is really about to unravel. And I'm thinking 2026, like I said, it's going to be a boom year.
Oh yeah.
But yeah,
I
contact Matt for sure. He's the guy you want to talk to. I've had a number of people in my audience who have already closed deals with him, and I've gotten great feedback. And Matt has even told me that there have been a couple of people that were so happy with the price they got, the service that they got, that they decided that they were going to double down and even triple down on how
Nice.
they purchased from him. So
Yep.
that just goes to show you he really is he's an honorable guy. He operates with integrity, and he's going to make sure that if and he's accessible. You call that phone number right there. You get him on the phone, and he'll take care of you. He'll pick up the phone and answer all your questions, and you'll be in good hands. So yeah, absolutely, call Matt.
Great idea, Scott, to mention that, because that is our other sponsor. And it's cool when we have the same sponsor with the guest that's on the show. It really makes things pretty easy to.
Yeah, last time
things we
Matt
believe in.
toward the end, I remember.
Things we really believe in. You know, we it's a truth channel, so you better believe in your the products you're advocating for. So
Well
No
said.
doubt about it.
yeah.
Well said. Very cool, guys. I'm just going to show folks our link tree, and someone did bring up the commented that our X account is TruthStream Show, but the O is actually a 0 because the original one got banned, and I didn't know what else to really do but put the 0 in there to keep it looking the same way. So hopefully that was the best decision. I don't know what to do otherwise, but that being said, I'm going to share a link or our link tree, and then I'm going to close out with the Freedom Now song that Scott helped to concept the music video that we shot with Nick Alvear in 2021. So because Scott and I are up to other things outside of the show, that's creative type of things like music and movies, etc., documentaries, if you will. But that being said, here is our link tree. That's what it looks like. It's under TruthStream, one word, and you can go down. There's our different sponsors, in-person gathering that we're having in Tacoma area this Thursday. Our Rumble X, everything is here, including the music videos, Spotify, Truth Social, my own website, and the Spotify channel to listen to music, because it's on all the streaming services. So, but that being said, I'm going to click this link, and we'll end the show with Freedom Now, and we'll see you guys very soon. Oh, great! That's funny. I'm logged in on one channel, but not the other. So there's an ad that I'm going to have to skip here. Oh my God, totally forgot about that, and another. But that being said, guys, and so and I could bring that up. I think it's $7 or $10 a month, and you can skip all of the ads on Rumble. So that's helpful. And those are Scott's boots. So,
Yeah. Little tip to the hat to Juan.
I'll share this instead here. So, all right, here we go. Hopefully this plays properly. I've been a kid by the side of the road, watching the world. Well, it's all just a show. Those we looked up to are not who they seem. They flash their symbols in a horrible scheme. We've been lied to about so many things. The television seeps poison as the mockingbirds sing. We just want freedom. We just want freedom. We just want freedom now. We just want freedom now. Scripts of the movies show part of the plots. Under the surface lies plenty of rots. Many actors play
devious road. Made a deal with the devil, undermined control. The leaders are blackmailed. They sold us out. Eyes and souls as black as coal. Gain their clout. We just want freedom. We just want freedom. We just want freedom now, now. We just want freedom now. We just want freedom. We just want freedom. We just want freedom now, now. We just want freedom now. No longer slaves in this human race. Explore the stars and travel space. The history we learned isn't even real. It's been rewritten as part of the deal. We've lived in a psyop, our DNA dumbed down. The world's been run by the cabal clowns. They want us divided and uninformed. Our morality gone as part of the norm. We just want freedom. We just want freedom. We just want freedom now, now. We just want freedom now. We just want freedom. We just want freedom. We just want freedom now, now. We just want freedom now. So raise your mind and join the fight. Unveil the truth from darkness to light. Where we go one, where we go one, we go oh, we go oh, where we go one, where we go one, we go oh.
I have.